Viper 1. 20 years. 2 decades since he'd heard that call sign. 2 decades since the worst night of his life, when everything he thought he knew about courage, sacrifice, and survival had been rewritten in the span of 7 minutes over the mountains of Afghanistan. The bartender glanced over at the broken glass, but Marcus didn't move. Couldn't move. He was back there, strapped into the belly of a Chinook that was spiraling toward the earth, hydraulics screaming, the pilot's voice crackling through the headset with words no SEAL ever wants to hear. "We're going down. Brace for impact. Hey, you okay?" The woman's voice cut through the memory. She was younger than him by maybe 15 years, mid-30s with dark hair pulled, back in a simple ponytail and eyes that held the kind of steady calm you only found in people who'd stared down death and won, or lost, depending on how you counted. Marcus finally looked at her, really looked at her. The slight scar above her left eyebrow, the way she held herself, even on a bar stool, with perfect posture, the faint tan line on her ring finger where a wedding band used to be. "Sorry," he managed, his voice rough. "Just that call sign. Where did you hear it?" She studied him for a long moment, and he could see her measuring him, assessing threat levels the way you never really stopped doing after you'd lived that life. "I didn't hear it," she said quietly. "I earned it." The impossible statement hung in the air between them. Marcus's mind raced. Viper 1 had been a pilot, a night stalker, one of the Army's elite, helicopter pilots who flew the missions nobody else would touch. And Viper 1 had been a man, Captain David Morrison, who'd held that burning Chinook steady for 7 seconds longer than should have been possible, giving Marcus and his team those precious heartbeats to leap from the side door before the bird pancaked into the mountainside. 7 seconds. 4 men saved. 1 pilot who'd never made it out. "That's not possible," Marcus said. "Viper 1 died in 2005 in the Hindu Kush. I was there." The woman's expression shifted, something painful flickering across her features before she locked it down. "My father," she said simply. "Captain David Morrison. I took his call sign when I graduated flight school. Took his seat, too, in the Wonder 60th. Figured somebody should finish what he started." The world tilted sideways. Marcus gripped the edge of the bar, feeling like he was falling all over again. This was Morrison's daughter, the little girl in the photo Morrison had shown the team before that final mission, grinning with missing front teeth and holding a toy helicopter. "She wants to fly just like her old man," Morrison had said, pride thick in his voice. "Gonna be the best damn pilot in the Army someday." "Emma," Marcus whispered. "You're Emma Morrison." Her eyes widened. "How do you—" "Your dad showed us your picture. The night before." He couldn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Emma's professional composure cracked, just a fraction. "You were on that bird. Chalk 4. 8 of us went up that mountain. 4 of us came back down." Marcus signaled the bartender for another glass, his hands still shaking. "Your father saved our lives. We had maybe 20 seconds before impact, and he held that bird level while it was tearing itself apart around him. We jumped from 60 feet up, broke bones, but we lived. He didn't." The words he'd carried for 20 years started tumbling out. A confession he'd never been able to make to the right person. "I was the last one out." I looked back and saw him still in the cockpit, fighting the controls. I screamed at him to jump, but he just shook his head. The bird was going to hit nose first if he let go. Would have flipped and crushed us all. So he rode it down. Emma's eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. The official report said mechanical failure. Catastrophic hydraulic loss. That's what they wrote. What they didn't write was that your father was the best pilot I ever flew with. He knew that bird was dying. But he also knew if he could keep the nose up for just a few more seconds, Marcus's voice broke. He chose us. He chose 4 men he barely knew over himself, and he did it without hesitation. A tear rolled down Emma's cheek, and she wiped it away impatiently. "I was 12, she said. Old enough to understand he wasn't coming home, too young to understand why. My mom tried to explain about duty and honor and service, but all I knew was that my dad was gone, and I'd never get to show him that I learned to do a barrel roll in Flight Simulator." "He talked about you constantly," Marcus said softly. Every mission brief, every down moment, he'd find a way to mention his girl. "Emma would love this altitude," or "Emma's gonna fly circles around these mountains someday." You were his whole world. Emma's composure finally shattered. Tears flowed freely now, and she didn't bother hiding them. I joined the army to understand him, to finish his story. But every time I strap into a helicopter, every time I take off, there's this voice in my head asking if I'm crazy for following in the footsteps of a man who died doing exactly what I'm doing. Marcus understood that voice. He'd heard his own version for 2 decades, asking why he'd deserved to survive when Morrison hadn't. Can I tell you something your father said to me? It was during the mission brief, maybe an hour before we took off. Emma nodded, unable to speak. I asked him if he ever got scared, flying into hot zones, knowing things could go sideways in a heartbeat. And he looked at me with this absolute certainty and said, every single time. But I'm not up there for me. I'm there for you, for the mission, for every person counting on me to bring them home. That's what makes the fear worth it. Marcus met her eyes. Your father wasn't fearless, Emma. He was brave. And there's a world of difference. He brought you home, Emma whispered. And you've been doing the same thing ever since, haven't you? Marcus gestured to the flight suit patch barely visible beneath her jacket. How many missions? How many soldiers got home safe because Viper 1 was at the controls? Emma's laugh was watery but genuine. 147 combat missions, 17 emergency medevacs, 4 crew members pulled from a downed bird in Syria last year. She paused. I keep count because I figure if I save enough people, maybe it balances out what we lost. It doesn't work that way, Marcus said gently. You can't balance that scale because there's nothing to balance. Your father made a choice, the right choice, the only choice he could live with in that moment. And you've been honoring that choice every single day since, not trying to fix something that was never broken. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 20 years settling between them like an old, familiar friend. Why were you here tonight? Emma finally asked. In this particular bar, I mean. Marcus smiled sadly. Anniversary. Every year on this date, I find a quiet place and toast the man who gave me 20 more years. I wasn't supposed to have. I've done it in 43 different bars across 15 countries. Just happened to be passing through Denver this time. Emma reached into her jacket and pulled out a small flask, worn smooth with age. This was his. Mom gave it to me when I got my wings. I fill it with his favorite bourbon and... She trailed off, suddenly self-conscious. And you drink to him every year on the same date, Marcus finished. In whatever bar you happen to be near. Their eyes met, and suddenly they were both laughing through tears. The coincidence too impossible and too perfect to be anything but fate. Marcus raised his fresh glass. To Captain David Morrison, Viper 1, the bravest man I never got to thank. Emma raised the flask. To my dad, who taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's loving something, more than you fear losing it. The glasses clinked, and they drank together. 2 people bound by grief and gratitude, by a ghost and a call sign, by the invisible threads that connect us across years and miles and memories. Later, as they prepared to part ways, Emma pulled a worn photograph from her wallet, the same one Morrison had shown the team 20 years ago, except this one was signed on the back in a child's careful handwriting. For Daddy's friends, thank you for being brave with him. Love, Emma, age 12. He carried a picture of you, Marcus said. I have one too. Kept it all these years. Emma smiled. Then I guess we've been carrying each other all along. In that dive bar in Denver, 2 warriors who'd spent decades carrying the weight of one good man's sacrifice finally set down their burdens, if only for a moment. They'd both learned the same lesson, though it had taken different paths to teach them, that the people we love never truly leave us. They live on in the choices we make, the lives we save, the courage we find when we need it most. Viper 1 had brought them both home in the end, just like he always said he would.